Hey, so, would you like to make a quick buck developing games even if you don't really know how to develop a game? Well, with just a few easy steps, it is in fact possible to make tens of thousands of pounds or dollars, or whatever currency you please, all by exploiting the natural systems that exist within the big gaming consoles, and hell, even in Steam. Have you ever heard of a game called The Tiger Tea? Now, I understand why you may not have. It's about 3 minutes long, but it still has got over 10,000 sales. That's because, in this incredible long play of The Tiger Tea, it really appears you don't do that much other than hold the button to gain steak. And as you gain more and more meat, you can see if you look at the top right corner of this, you actually get more and more trophies, making you feel good. And it's that feeling good that, of course, will lead to you buying games like this. But seriously, have you actually browsed the PlayStation Store? Because when you do, what you're going to find is, of course, lots of games, lots of curated collections of things. But I dare you to just try sorting by new. You'll find many of the usual suspects, random games you haven't heard of, lots of weird harem visual novel games which somehow are there, oddly enough, and then games like The Tiger Tea, and many others. I mean, seriously, do it now and you'll find loads of these. These are incredible, and you know, these actually give you so much value, because whenever you get these trophies, you actually get a tiger fact. Yeah, telling you essential bits of tiger information, such as a punch from a tiger may kill you. Isn't that incredible? Now, realistically, this is something that's been going on for a long, long time. I remember way back in the day, you would actually have articles appearing on gaming websites about what basically, like, bargain bin games were really good for just getting 1,000 gamer score. Yeah, I was there back when gamer score was first a thing, when me and my friends at school actually did compare gamer score, and then I think it very rapidly wore off on the whole lot of us, but still, it is powerful for many because, well, per Simon Carlos's Game Discover Co. newsletter, this game, The Tiger Tea, has 10,000 players on PlayStation. It costs $1.45, which does mean that for, I mean, let's be real, an evening of coding, you just made like over 10 grand. And the thing is, you know, this developer's got over 150 of these games. Over 150 of incredible games just like The Tiger Tea, all gladly being paid for by people who just want to get more trophies, or at least they were, for Sony is actually cracking down on this entire situation. There's a document leaked to dex.exe, and this outlined Sony's expectations to developers over just what should be on the store. And you can see it here in their policy for spam and duplicative content. It's basically saying that if you love the idea of a $2 game that gets you a platinum trophy in 5 minutes, well, PlayStation ain't for you anymore. When partners oversaturate or spam the PlayStation Store with many variants of the same type of content, it can negatively impact both the customer and partner experience. And here's the deal. This absolutely makes everyone's experience of the PlayStation Store the worst. I mean, do you remember the Curse of Black Tiger or Legend of Black Tiger, or whatever that video was that was, I think it was highlighted on a Squirty Play episode years and years ago, and you look at it and the game's a total laughingstock. Yeah, that stuff's all over the place, and it makes the store so much less usable. I mean, you'd like to think you could just sort by new and see what the new releases are. But when the bar is so low, we almost have a problem like with the whole Steam Greenlight situation, where just any Tom, Dick, and Harry can come in and completely saturate the place with utter tripe. Now, unfortunately, this is not a retroactive change because the store is still full of shite. In fact, just yesterday, when I was browsing for games on my PlayStation, I did find, it's still full of shite. And that absolutely sucks. Sony, I think, should retroactively go and delete all of this shit. And you may say, oh, that's not fair. What about the poor developers who want to make a 3-minute long game with no mechanics? Yeah, fuck them. Fuck him, it just makes it worse for users. The PlayStation Store should not be a laughing stock, and it's especially hilarious when Sony's entire goddamn brand for what the PlayStation is about ultra premium, the patrician gamer's option where you get the finest artistic blockbusters, and you go to the store and it's all the Tiger Tea and similar shit, you know, like Tofu Flip, I think that was one of them, and some other one where it was this basic rhythm game where some, like, you know, face buttons came towards you, you get a trophy whenever you hit a face button. You know, you hit X for the first time, you get a trophy. You hit X 2 times, you get another trophy. Total horseshit. And ultimately, it's a strange thing because, well, we've started putting all of this weird gamified stuff like achievements in our games. Then Valve were like, achievements, how about we do trading cards? You're like, you click trading cards, you're like, what is this? Trading card is almost like, you know, altcoin cryptocurrency levels of just fake value that doesn't really exist. I mean, what do you want? Do you want FTT token or a Steam trading card? Maybe they're the same. Now, as for the impact and all of this, it does mean that audiences have been really trained to want this kind of thing. It is important to people. Here's a fun thing from Alexander Bruce, who is the developer of a game called Antichamber. So even 10 years later, people are asking for achievements, right? Cool. As the creator, I don't want achievements in my game. I hate 90% of them. Yeah, you should not feel like you have to do achievements. Although that said, well, you know, market kind of makes you want to do achievements, right? We're developing a game right now. It's coming out in not too long. Obviously, you can't say exactly when. And achievements are something we've had to consider. And I'll let you know what our decision-making and our thought process is in that later. But the thing is, a whole host of gamers have basically been trained to do things for those achievements. And maybe getting a platinum trophy in a game ends up being a really motivating thing the first time around. But then what happens, and Matt's talked about this before, what happens when you play a game past the point of enjoyment purely to get the platinum trophy? You're doing that purely for the extrinsic reward, and suddenly, oh dear, you are now assaulting how much you're enjoying video games, and it's making things worse for you. Now, of course, for many, as is, I think, highlighted in this Achievement Hunter interview, those achievements can just be a thing that's like a very literal representation of the time that you actually spent in a game. You can quickly go and see how many of the things in the game that you've actually done. And even to talk about Bruce, the developer of Antichamber here, Alexander Bruce, he's not opposed to them, right? Like, there can be ones that are good. But, I mean, he's getting tweets like this. All of these games that have them. Even Michael has put an achievement into 868 hack, and he's 10 times the puzzle designer you are. Just do it, asshole. So that's, surprisingly, well, mean and entitled sentiment from somebody. But it does bring up the fact about achievements, right? I mean, we've got Steam curators, like here, Steam curator, easy 100%. Games where it's easy to get 100% of the achievements. And this all brings us to a topic we've been talking about for a very long time, and that is extrinsic versus intrinsic rewards. I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to just complete the checklist of the things that I can do in the game that I purchased, right? And I think the Achievement Hunter people have got a very reasonable understanding of why people want this. Here's a quote. I can hazard a guess that people who are really into achievements probably collected a lot of baseball cards or football cards as a kid, right? It's that collector's thing, in the same way that you might want to have all of your games in your shelf, physical box, alphabetically labeled, or whatever arbitrary labeling system you want. Like there is that thing in humanity, the collector, the organizer, the box ticker. It is something that exists. So then really it's about, is the checklist in the game or is the checklist the game? Because whenever achievements are an intrinsic reward or a fun little challenge, that's, that's good and fun. But whenever it's extrinsic, then the game doesn't matter. It is just about ticking the box. And when the reward is more important than the journey of getting the reward, then things are lopsided, and then we're setting ourselves up for long-term failure. And if you have ever just found, like, you're sitting there, you're browsing your Steam library, and you're like, what the fuck do I do? There's all these games I could play. Half of them I've bought and haven't even played. Why do I no longer feel any motivation to engage in my hobby that I think I love because I love games, but why can't I choose a game to play if I love games? And then you have a minor existential crisis. Yeah, I mean, we've all been there, right? Sometimes that's because your brain's been all turned into gobbledygook by all of the incentives and all the things that happen within games. Which of course leads us to the fun thing of achievement guides. Because we have a situation today that I highlighted with the news that Sony are acting to mitigate the worst results of their trophy system, where people are just making games for trophies like the Tiger T, and somehow making over 10 grand a game, which is insane. But let's talk about a good example. So here's and this is Valve, putting achievements into Steam and then doing a good one. Little Rocket Man, right? Where this is just for carrying Noam Chomsky from the start to the end of Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, right? And it's an absurd challenge. It is, and it's a challenge the team designed, and it's absolutely a challenge that you would never think to do, but they just thought it would be funny. So what they were able to do is design an achievement, which really is just a challenge to complete within the game that you can do because it's a cool challenge. And that is a pretty neat thing, because this is both an intrinsic and an extrinsic reward. It's actually them creating new game, new challenge. It's almost like turning on a Halo skull if you want to do this. This is a far healthier form of achievements, right? And to go back to Rooster Teeth a final time, it forces you to play a game in a way that you wouldn't play it, and it creates additional gameplay value out of a game. For example, there is an achievement in Call of Duty 3 to go through an entire level without firing your gun. Why would you ever try to do that? But it's a fun little achievement. So that is an example of a cool little gameplay challenge being created. I like that sort of thing. An achievement for completing a game at the hardest difficulty. But whenever it's just an achievement that you're grinding out for the sake of grinding it out, that's where it sucks. And I guess this is where it comes to some of the discussions that I've had with my co-founder Thomas over his entire experience of putting achievements into our game, The Pale Beyond. And it's been a really interesting one because, as you know, we are announced on Steam, and Valve themselves say, hey, best practices, you should have some achievements in your game. Now, we're not going to do achievements just because we are doing achievements. We're going to do them because maybe they're fun. So in our case, we have a game with multiple endings. Well, you could actually use the achievement system to maybe help point out different endings. And that even led to us having the discussion of, okay, what achievements do we have be secret achievements that you don't know you can get until you actually get them, versus what achievements do we have that are, achievements that are there. You can go and look up the achievements of the game, and maybe they can point you in a direction to a type of gameplay, maybe a decision that you can make with a character that's a little bit different. So what we're going to try to do in our game is to use achievements to help someone, basically really to give you, a guide of like, hey, this is like how you see literally all the content that we wrote and put in the game. You don't have to go searching for things if you've got all the achievements. Maybe put in some little Easter eggs. And then for maybe some of the more cool, unique, bizarre things, maybe nothing as crazy as Noam Chomsky over here, but things like that, well, it's nice to know that achievements do exist as a tool to allow us to do that sort of thing. But what's always important is that these achievements are being used in a way that is not just extrinsic. There must be an intrinsic gameplay motivation side to it, or else I would feel we'd be burning through our players, that it wouldn't really be fair and it would not be in our or their long-term interest. So there you go. Achievements, intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, and the absolute crapshoot of games that is just shunted onto the PlayStation Store. I mean, why does Sony let this happen? It looks really bad when they're trying to be premium, but you go onto their store and the second you go off the beaten path, you're basically in like a weird flea market full of shite. It's very weird. Okay, let me know what your experience with all of this has been. If you want to check out what's going on with our game, you can check out The Pale Beyond over in Steam. With that said, see you next time.